And here I am for the third and final part of our video series about the Tolpuddle Martyrs story. You've listened to me and watched the BBC Witness programme answering the questions to get your head around the story. You have read the textbook pages and created your own representation of the Tolpuddle Martyrs story. And now that we've learnt about it together, you've got to show your understanding through writing a short essay, a bit of an exam question, a 12 marker. It's slightly different to what you would what you would actually be asked to in an exam, but for the purposes of this, we're going to ask the question about the causes and the ending of the Tolpuddle Martyrs story. You can see the exact wording in your assignment, but it boils down to what caused the Tolpuddle Martyrs incident and what caused it to end the way it did. Something along those lines. And I'm now here in this final video to walk you through some of the information that you would have found in the textbook pages, on the BBC Witness, and from things I've already said. So you'll see what caused it and what ended it on the same sheet with the same three things, which is a little bit weird. This one's going to change shortly, but let's start with what caused it. First of all, one of the big things that caused it, as I mentioned in my second video, is that the ruling classes, the people in charge of the country, the people like the landowners, like the landowner in the Tolpuddle Martyrs case, they were all fearful of what had happened just over the channel, very close geographically, the French Revolution. I said geography again. I'm deeply ashamed of myself. But yes, they're worried about the French Revolution, where the population of France rose up and got rid of the monarchy and many of the other people in the upper classes by chopping their heads off by guillotine and replacing the monarchy of France with a republic. The people of England, the ruling classes of England, were fearful of that same sort of thing happening in England. And so this is why the judge, the jury, which was made up of landowners, and the landowner himself were all quite willing to punish the Tolpuddle Martyrs really harshly for daring to create a trade union, even though they didn't really do anything wrong. They made up the excuse, of course, about the secret oath thing, but that's why they did it. It was fear that if you let the working classes band together, it could end in something like this. The second reason why it became the big case that it did, why so many people heard about it, why it became called the Tolpuddle Martyrs, is because of the media. The media didn't start the incident. The media got hold of it when the Tolpuddle Martyrs were arrested. It was the media that spread the story around the country to get the wealthy landowners, the business owners interested in it, thinking, oh, how are they going to treat these guys, because this could impact on my businesses. And getting the rest of the population looking at what's going on, going, well, that's not fair, that's ridiculous, and hoping that something good would come of what happened to the Tolpuddle Martyrs, hoping the Tolpuddle Martyrs would be spared their terrible punishment. So this caused the incident itself. This caused the incident. The media, which was developing at the time in the early 1800s, was reaching more people, a wider audience, and the media helped the story to spread and to become famous and well known. There must have been lots of stories like this that in previous decades, maybe even centuries, that nobody had heard about. But in this case, there's a greater number of newspapers to circulate this information. And finally, attitudes. I'm just going to underline this. Attitudes cause it. Attitudes lead. The attitudes of the minority, the small number of landowners who want things to be like they've always been, where they're in complete control, their attitudes hadn't changed. But the attitudes of the majority of the population had changed. And this is what caused it, because there was a difference between the majority of the population who thought being in a trade union was okay, and the minority of the population who thought that it was, well, not they thought it was, they really didn't want trade unions to happen and were doing everything in their power to try to stop it. So the French Revolution caused the fear, the media caused it to spread, attitudes, also the attitudes of the people reacting in outrage to this caused it to become such a huge event that we teach about to this day, such a well-known, what you would say, influential event in crime and punishment. So what caused it to end the way it did? The French Revolution. You should already know, let's think, you think for yourself, there was a petition and a protest of a certain large number of people in both cases who were angry that this had happened. So ironically, although the punishments that were handed out in the first place were to try to stop something like, it was the fear of the working classes that caused them to punish so harshly. It was also the fear of the working classes, who were clearly so angry about this whole thing, that caused the authorities to bring the Tolpuddle Martyrs back so they didn't have to serve their full 7 years transported to Australia. So the French Revolution caused, and the fear of the landowners and the ruling classes associated with it caused it, but it also ended it because actually it backfired and it made the working classes furious, which perhaps made something like this a little bit more likely. The media, they stoked it up, they made it so that it was such a well-known incident, and they also carried on with that, reporting on the protests, reporting on the petitions, reporting on the many protests, because there wasn't just one, they were all across the country, gathering people's thoughts on the whole incident and talking about how unfair it was. They helped to spread this idea that this was an outrage and that the Tolpuddle Martyrs, well, that need to be brought back. They also spread the news of all the protests that were going on about the petition and so on and so forth. So the media spread the fear that made the ruling classes take note and go, whoa, we need to do something about this. And attitudes. Now, not this one. I'll cross that bit out. That attitudes actually had changed for the majority. It was no longer acceptable for people, for the working classes, to be treated in this way. So the reason that the Tolpuddle Martyrs incident was caused was the French Revolution, the media, and attitudes, and the reason why it ended the way it did was the French Revolution, the media, and attitudes, which had changed in the majority of the population. Now, you can read all about that in the textbook pages I sent you. Hopefully, you can recognise a lot of that and go, oh yeah, that makes sense from the previous videos and from the BBC Witness episode. I am available for questions though. If you're tuning into this and you're not from Rossett School and you do want to ask questions, then you can do it in the comments box and I will get a notification. But if you're doing remote learning at the moment or something else, maybe this is in future years, then contact me how you're supposed to contact me during this period. You know how that is, using Teams, and I will answer your questions. So do your best, answer the question. Make sure you're using a lot of explanation words to help you to explain yourself thoroughly. Have the textbook pages out in front of you so you can pick out facts and information that will help to back up the arguments that you're making. Make sure you use paragraphs. In fact, if you've got your book with you, I know some of you took it home, you could look at the last target you were given when you did an essay before we got sent home and try to put into action your previous targets. For massive bonus points from me, I would really love to see you focusing on something in your work and writing a target at the top. If you can't remember what targets you were given last time, maybe remember a target from this year and tell me something in particular in your answer that you are trying to focus on to improve and get better on. Whether it's focus on the question, to develop the depth of your explanation, to support your argument with evidence, whatever it is, I'd love to see something, and that will be part of the marking rubric that you will be able to see in the assignment. So that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed the series of videos on the Tolpuddle Martyrs, and I hope this has been a bit more effective learning than perhaps I've been doing just by sending you some work. And stay safe, and stay inside, and don't mix, and I hope you're all well.